Alright, this is a game in the Object 907, the Tier 10 Russian medium premium tank on Prokhorovka. We've done Prokhorovka in mediums before. Not really going to talk too much about surfing, although we're going to do our typical surf center east here because we're going to try to spot what tanks are going over here. Primarily we're going to talk about what happens when you get some information and how do you process that information and how do you take some especially early lights and turn that into an advantage for yourself. So as per usual, I always look and see if any of our fast tanks like the WZ-131 could do the scouting bit. It looks like he's going like west-ish though, and usually people don't really surf that well. And all you really need to do is stick the edge of your turret over the ridge, and that's good enough to spot. And usually you can get some good intel. Even in a relatively slow tank like the Russian mediums, you still get up here fast enough that you're going to be able to get some good intel. And so we see a bunch of their heavy tanks and tank destroyers headed over there, and that's particularly interesting on a map like Prokhorovka. And like, see how this FE-183, he's crossing this river, which tells you that he's going to be over here. The Jag Tiger is going north, right? So you can tell just by where they go immediately after they cross what they're going to potentially do. And then that information is also useful for your guys that head down to that southeast. And then what I typically do, if I see a lot of tanks over on that east side, I'll do a quick scope on the west side just to see how far they've moved up, whether they have people there or not. And a lot of that is just a matter of whether you get lit or not, and it gives you some intel. So they have something over here, presumably something that is able to light. And you see that their 215B is moving up through the middle. And so if you're these guys that are headed towards the hill, you know that you have to be careful because they sent a lot of their heavies down across the east side over the railroad tracks, and so that's important information to have. So they have an IS-7 M103 in the 5-6 line finger, so that's something that's important to note. And so what I always do is I always look and see what my artillery is doing. And these guys, if you keep them lit, this M103 IS-7, they're in the most vulnerable position on the map to get hit by artillery. So if you just continually light them, then that's the ideal thing for your team. And it's the same thing, like if you're a heavy tank or a medium tank playing this 6 line from the other side, right? Your job right there is not to counter the other guys in the 6 line. So like their IS-7, his job isn't to counter the Centurion and our IS-4 and our T-69. And you see that their M103 crept too far forward and got popped. But their job really is to shoot these guys on the hill if the guys on the hill get lit. But see how their guys they're being a little bit too aggressive, they're poking over a little bit too far, and it's essentially overexposing them. And so you always want to be careful with that. And then 215B is still too far up. But see how our guys on the 0 line, they're playing really conservative, whether by design or by accident. It works out well for them because we know that they have a lot of guns on this side, or they at least had a lot of guns on this side. And so that potentially exposes this 0 line there. But as we start to clear out this 6 line, and this is the strength of owning the 6 line hill, is that you can shoot at these guys that are up on the hill. And then also my job here is to try to light this IS-7 to make sure that he gets lit for 2 reasons. 1, it makes him a target for artillery, and 2, he probably has 6th sense, and whenever he knows he's lit, he's going to be more liable to back down, which means that if this guy, this T-57 lights our guys up on the hill, the IS-7 isn't going to have good shots on them. And so that's all I'm really trying to do there is keep that guy honest. I still know that they have a lot of tanks on this east side, right? The FE-183 is probably still out on the island. And the fact that their FE-183 killed our E-75 that was going up that middle kind of suggests that he's still out there. So this IS-7 is now in kind of an inconsequential position. See how he's backed off a little bit? So he really doesn't have a whole lot.
It's a trap!
So that JT is still playing that center lane. FE183 is over there. The IS-7 is on the 6th line. I got lit, so I'm just going to back off until I drop spot. And then I'm going to try to relight up through this JT. See how their IS-7 has bailed off to that side, so I don't have to worry about the IS-7 proxy spotting me. But I want to see if I can find this JT, who was on this hill at one point. But he probably backed off to the other side when he got lit. So given where the IS-7 is, I can cross the railroad track and try to spot the to where the JT is. And if I don't see the JT, then I can potentially push down on this east side. Right, so I know that the JT is not still straddling the railroad track because I don't see him on either side. So that means he went down on one side or the other. And see how our IS-7 is pushing up underneath over here. So we're going to take this opportunity to go down through this east side over here.
It's a trap!
Unfortunately, we get lit by their 183. And the 183 backs off, and then see where the artillery just hit just behind me. That suggests that the artillery is on this north side over here in that A6 area, so not too much of a problem. That JT poked over, and then see how we control this 6 line area. You don't want to be where that JT was if we control the 6 line because it's too easy for you to get lit. So all I really got to do is proxy this FB. But he's a little bit too slow to react to my presence, so it's really easy for me to get to the side. And they have a 121 YOLOing down here, but again, this 121 is not in that great of a position, even though he's got a health advantage on me, right? Because I've got a bunch of guys behind me. So all I have to do is stay low enough on this hill so I can't be shot from the other side, and I basically just let my team do a little bit of work here. And then it's pretty much just mop up because we have map control of 80% of the map. And we see that kind of as expected, the rest of their high tiers are camping a little bit on the west side. And those are tanks that, you know, wouldn't have made it out without being spotted. So like that Waffle and the JPE that are on the 2 line over here, you know, if they tried to go east at the beginning of the game, we would have seen them in that blob through that B6 area. There's no way that those tanks can hide because they're too slow and too bad. The camo is too bad, and so just basically by subtraction, you kind of know that those tanks aren't over there. And so that's the other nice sort of thing about having early lights is that you can do scouting by subtraction essentially to figure out where tanks are or tanks are not. And so that's pretty much all there is to it. And so based upon the enemy's initial dispersion, we knew that they were east heavy, but we knew that at least the FE-183 was going out to the island, and that JT, at least initially, was going to play further back. It turned out that he ended up playing back the whole time. They did send a couple of guys to the hill, right? But our guys on the hill played far enough back, whether it was because they saw that they sent a bunch of tanks over or not, I don't actually know. And then the difference for this middle area again is that, you know, if I keep the M103, the IS-7, that E100, and to a lesser extent that FE215B lit, right, eventually people are gonna be able to whittle them down, and so the strength of playing the 6 line, and the reason why you want heavies in the 6 line is to counter the hill, but it's also those heavies that are on the 6 line from either side are exposed. If you can continually light them, then artillery will eventually be able to pick them off. And so if we look at the stats, fairly typical game. We drive a long distance, but the important thing to note is that we did get our damage in, and most of that was essentially sniping. You know, both the T-57 on the hill, to a lesser extent, you know, various other things that we were able to shoot at. I think we got a couple shots at the E-75, got a shot at the E-100, things like that. And then at the end where, you know, you actually have an opportunity to push in, you're going to get some damage. But it's important to get the assisted damage. We did about 4K assisted damage. And that a lot of that is just basically from doing those loops, surfing loops, essentially, and being able to keep guys lit, and being in a position where you're on the edge, but you're in a position where you're not taking a lot of fire. So even though we got 4K spawning damage, you know, we didn't take a lot of damage. We didn't take a lot of incoming fire until we started pushing down on that east side. So that's sort of how you want to play it, based upon the way that their team decided to disperse. So that's about it. Hope you find that was helpful, and thanks for watching.